Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video I'm going to give some feedback on Adham's speaking test. So let's jump straight into it. Good afternoon. My name is Glyn. Would you tell me your full name, please?
Good afternoon, Mister. My full name is Adham, but you can just call me Adham.
Okay, thank you, Adham. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Do you work or do you study?
Currently, I'm studying at university, and just last year I accepted by the university.
Last year I accepted by the university. Last year I was accepted by the university. So candidate misses some passive there.
And I'm learning economics.
I'm learning economics. Okay, it's fine. Studying is probably better, but learning, okay, no problem. And why did you decide to study economics?
It was kind of interesting for me because my dad and my other relatives work.
Relatives. I know, like, relate is the verb to relate, but the noun is relatives. There's a stress shift. Relatives.
In bank industries or something like that.
Okay, answer's a bit short, right? Just a little bit short. And what would you like to do when you finish studying?
Firstly, I will try to find a new job, and also I need to.
You can probably hear the candidate's pronunciation is a little bit staccato. Duh, 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 duh. There's not really a nice flow there. And again, it's not a huge criticism. Pronunciation is clear, easy to understand, but we don't have advanced features of connected speech and intonation and sentence stress. So that lack of stress timing will probably limit the candidate to a maximum of 6 without advanced features of pronunciation. It's really difficult to get a 7. So to get the 7, you need to have like all of the positive features of 6 and some but not all of the positive features of band 8. But those positive features of band 8 are tough. It's about like sustaining and maintaining intonation over long stretches of speech, really difficult to get that. So candidate will be limited to a maximum of 6 for pronunciation, I think.
Make some passive income business that.
And it's strange, right? What are you planning to do when you finish your studies? I want to make some passive income business. Details would be nice. Why passive income? Like it's just a bit of a strange choice.
It's good, and having a not temporary, full-time job.
Mm-hmm. So you can see the candidate's kind of shaking his head, almost apologizing. Just notice again, there's nothing, it's okay to mess up a little bit.
And having a not temporary, full-time job.
Mm-hmm. So you can I don't know if he even says, I'm sorry or something like this. Now, I, in my life, have played a lot of chess. I'm not a very good chess player, but great piece of advice I got from chess is the mistake is never the reason why you lose the game. Okay, at higher levels it is. But when you're playing at like my level of chess, making a mistake doesn't lose you the game. The way you react to the mistake loses you the game. So when you're playing chess and you make a move and you think, oh, that's a mistake. I've lost a pawn or I've lost a piece or I've given away a strategic positional advantage to my opponent. The way you react to that, if you're a good, strong chess player, you can put that out of your mind. You can think, okay, I made a mistake. I'm now going to play the board that I have in front of me. A bad chess player, like me, will think, oh my God, I can't believe I made that mistake. Why did I make that mistake? That was awful. That was terrible. I can't believe I did that. I understand if you feel like you've made a mistake, and you certainly haven't made a critical error here, saying like full-time job. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a normal slip of vocab. But the way that you react is So important. If you beat yourself up, if you allow that negative voice to say, I can't believe you said that, that's so stupid, that's such a bad mistake, that's awful, you will create that negative headspace, and the rest of the test, you'll just be focusing on, like, I can't believe I made that mistake. Every single person, without exception, makes some kind of mistake in the IELTS speaking test. It's perfectly fine. And I know it's difficult, but you have to find a way to bounce back. You can't be too critical of yourself. It's just a speaking test, bro. Just deal with the questions. It's okay. Anyway, so yeah. Let's talk about walking now. Do you like going for a walk?
Yeah, I really love walking at in evenings alone. It's really good for your health and
And I don't know if it's because of the candidate's negative reaction to the previous question, but the candidate does seem a little bit like shook, a little bit, now he's a bit worried, and the speech, the pronunciation now has become a little even more mechanical, I would say. So it doesn't, I don't know, listen to the answer and tell me, does it sound like something that's nice and free flowing and smooth, or does it sound a little bit more like this?
evenings alone. It's really good for your health and to keep your body in tonus.
Yeah, so Canda's looking for a particular bit of language here to keep your body in tonus. Now, I guess he means like he's looking for the adjective toned, to keep your body toned. Now, toned is a very specific word here. If you can't find that very specific word, I recommend not taking a risk and just using something simple. You can keep your body healthy, you can keep your body in a positive way, or something like that might be more understandable than you can keep your body in tones. Because when you say you keep your body in tones, that's a vocab mistake that causes confusion, right? And we don't want our vocab mistakes to lose to result in losses of coherence. So better to explain something in simple words, and even if it's wrong in an understandable way, it keeps your body in a positive way. I can understand that better than it keeps your body in a tones. And are there lots of places? And you can see again the candidate's negative reaction. Watch the candidate's negative reaction.
In tonus.
And are there lots of places? You can see it, right? I there's nothing as teachers we can really do when people feel a bit nervous or people have negative psychology. That's something on a human level you have to work on. I know there are these things like language coach, and those language coaches could work on some of the psychological barriers that we have when we use a second language. Yeah, all I can say to the candidate is, your English is okay, your English is fine. Your negative reactions will not help your English. That's all I'll say. This is to walk near where you live.
Yeah, there is a kind of canal near my house.
A canal is fine, I understand it, but the correct pronunciation is canal.
And I walk there almost every day for 30 minutes.
Okay, tried to find on a daily basis, couldn't find it, reformed to every day. That's okay, but it does show maybe a small limitation in vocab, perhaps. Pronunciation is still a bit staccato. And when did you last go for a walk?
It was about a couple of days ago, probably on Monday evening.
Yeah, so that's just not developed at all, right? There's a direct answer to the question, but you have to develop. Tell me more about this walk. So, usually the examiner will give the candidate a chance to develop, and if they don't, they will go to one of their prompts. Examiners don't like going to the prompts, or it's not that they don't like it, it's that it usually means that there's a lack of a willingness to what we say, to keep going. Now, this is an important part of the fluency and coherence criteria, a willingness to speak at length or a willingness to keep going. And when you don't develop your answers, if it happens once, it's not a problem. But a couple of this candidate's answers have been, a little bit short and a little bit like, well, tell me a little bit more about that. And if the examiner has to ask the follow-up question like, tell me more about that, or why, if the examiner has to keep doing that, that is evidence that the candidate doesn't show a willingness to speak at length. But of course, you're not judged on just one answer. We try to take the picture as a whole.
I was there alone as always, and I'm currently at Tashkent where I study and talk to my grandmother and my other relatives at far away from me.
Don't understand why that's connected to this walk that you had, right? You're talking about the walk, and then you said you spoke to your grandmother and your relatives because you're in Tashkent and they live far away from you. So there's this critical lack of coherence there. I just can't understand how your answer matches with the question that I asked. But okay. And do you sometimes go for a walk with other people?
Yeah, I do it with my friends. We go to such places like Seoul Moon, which is a really good place in Tashkent. You can
Okay, so candidate explains what that place is and where it is. Nice.
find new friends there and have a great time.
Okay, a little bit limited, right? You can find friends, have a great time. I'm thinking about like walking. What is this place? What makes this place such a nice place to walk? You can have a great time and you can make friends. Okay, that feels a little bit generic, but what makes it a nice place to walk, right? Like I remember one park near my home. It's called Roath Park. It's not in the city centre in Cardiff, but it's just a little bit out. But it's so beautiful. We have this like really big lake, and of course, a lot of parents take their children there, especially at the weekend. But if you go during the week, it's like so serene and you can hear the birds singing and things like this. And, because there are so much trees, like the air always feels fresher. So notice how my answer is really focusing in on why Roath Park is such a nice place to walk. Not just it's a great place, you can meet friends, but I'm trying to, really dig deep into what makes this place a nice place to walk. Now let's talk about buses. How often do you travel by bus?
I don't like the. I don't use buses on a daily basis, but
Okay, candidate found that on a daily basis. He tried to use it earlier and failed, but now he found it. Cool.
because the underground railways are better for me because it's more reachable to my university by train.
And yeah, candidate. I mean, this is part one. The questions are supposed to be easy. We really, we would expect B1s to have just a little bit of difficulty with this, but certainly we don't want, if you're aiming for the higher bands like C1, certainly part one should be a breeze. The questions should be quite easy for you. We don't want to notice too much discomfort. And I think there is noticeably some discomfort from the candidate. Buses reliable in your country?
Reliable, do you mean that they are available?
I can only repeat the question. Are buses reliable? Yeah, so it's an important thing. In part one, the examiner can repeat the question, but it is an interview, not a discussion. But in part three, if you don't understand a question, you can engage more with the examiner. But I can just repeat it here. In your country. And if you don't know what reliable means, just say, I'm sorry, I don't know what reliable means. Can we go to the next question? It's better to do that than just a guess. In my opinion.
Yeah, they are.
And you can see the candidate, I think the candidate is freaking out because he's thinking, I don't know what reliable means. And he thinks I need to struggle through it. I would not mark a student down for saying, sorry, I don't know what reliable means. Can we go to the next question? I would think, yeah, fine, no problem. Throw it away. Let's forget about it. Let's move on. But if a candidate responds and tries to struggle through the answer, tries to guess what reliable means, I might see that then as evidence of like a lack of fluency or something like this.
And there are so many buses, and as they moved in different directions in our city.
Yeah, so now the candidate's given an answer that's like a little bit off topic, right? There are so many buses and they move in different directions in the city that is not connected to how reliable buses are. Reliable means, they're not late, they're on time. That's what reliable means. And do people on buses make a lot of noise where you live? Now, notice the question people on buses. Do people on buses make a lot of noise? But the answer is
Yeah, actually it is because at night there are too many motorcycles which are driving so fast at night, and it's
so the motorcycles might make a lot of noise. But the question is people on buses. So people on buses, do they talk on their phone? Do they listen to music? Things like this.
really disgusting, and it just disturbs your sleep.
And what's the longest bus journey you've ever been on?
It was about a couple of years ago in 2022.
So notice whenever we have questions like when was something, candidate uses it was a couple of. And that's okay, but it is noticeable. I think this is the third time he's used like it was a couple of days ago, or it was a couple of months ago, or it was a couple of years ago. I'm just thinking, okay, is that language that's naturally appropriate for the situation, or is it just the candidate trying to activate it was a couple of ago? But okay.
We took a bus trip to Samarkand with
Took a bus trip to Samarkand. Very nice.
with my classmates, and it took about 3 days.
It took about 3 days. Love it. Okay, thank you. Now, all right, so some comments on the candidates part one. Pronunciation seems to be, stuck at that 6 where there's just not enough intonation, there's not enough sentence stress, but it's easy enough to understand everything the candidate says. Cool. Fluency and coherence, I think, is the candidate's weakest part. It is difficult for him to keep going. Some of the answers are a little bit short. Some of the answers are off topic. And, there are some reformulations. But the candidate clearly relies on slow speech to keep going. It's not super awkward. But, if you've ever spoken to like an elementary English user, you'll know that there's like big strain on the listener because they say like where you are from, and it's almost difficult to listen to those elementaries, right? It's not painful, but it does put some strain on you as a listener. Now, of course, this candidate is not an elementary user of English, but there is still a little bit of noticeable strain which is caused by that lack of fluency. Just a little bit. Vocab is okay. He's finding some stuff, words like tone is okay, just the wrong word. But in general, a couple of months ago and things like this is nice. I like the collocation of like it took about 3 days. All of that's good. Grammar generally accurate. Not a huge range of grammar yet, but we had some like there is, there are. We had like so many buses. So candidate does show some awareness of fairly simple, fairly basic, but also some not complex structures, but knows the difference between much and many and things like this. So doing okay with vocab, doing okay with grammar, doing okay with pronunciation, but fluency is holding him back a little bit. Okay. This next part of the test, I'm going to give you a topic. And notice the candidate's shaking his head. So just watch this again. Now I'm going into my instructions. Watch the candidate. Now, in this next part of the test, I'm going to give you a topic, and I would like you to speak about. Better not to do it. Now, the examiner cannot take points off you for having negative body language, of course, but it just isn't going to help you. I promise it's not going to help you if you're sitting there going, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." I understand as a human, I'm quite self-critical too. When I make mistakes, I find it very difficult to move on. But you have, if you want to get the best possible mark in your IELTS speaking test, having this negative body language certainly is not going to help you. So you have to find a way to, try to stay positive. This topic for 1 to. Can you see the topic?
Yeah, I see it.
You used a map. Okay. So the candidate. Sorry. All right, so the candidate needs to talk about a time when he used a map. I love these narratives. Task 2, we know there are a variety, but many tasks in task 2 require you to tell a story about a time when you did something. I think these are the best task 2s to do because you can just learn your narrative tenses, learn your adverbs, learn your sequencing language. So easy to do. Learn your reported speech, learn your sequence of tenses. So easy to score well in these tasks. But, I think on this channel, I've had about 100 speaking tests. Now, of those, maybe about half of them have had task 2s, which have, some type of storytelling. And I think I've only been impressed by one candidate's ability to use narrative tenses. Only one out of all of these. So it seems like such an obvious thing. If I was taking IELTS, I would be all over narrative tenses, reported speech, sequence of tenses, future in the past, adverbs and sequencing language to nail this type of task 2. Talk about a time when you did something in the past. I would be that's where I would focus all of my grammar if I was doing IELTS. Of course, it's not guaranteed that you'll have to talk about some story, a narrative like this, but they come up very, very often. And candidates just don't prepare for it. They prepare for so many things, but they just do not prepare for this type of thing. Anyway, so past time, that's what I'm looking for. Past time constructions, telling a story. Let's see how the candidate does. Okay, so that's the end of your preparation time. To remind you, you'll have between 1 and 2 minutes to give your talk, and I will let you know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Last time when I used the.
So only a tiny thing. This talks about a time when you used a map. Candidate starts with the last time when I used a map. You don't have to limit yourself to the last time. You can do it. But I noticed this with so many candidates when it's talk about a time when that they start with the last time I. And I just think, why limit yourself to the last time? But okay.
Map, it was about a year ago when
Again, it was about a year ago. So we get that. We've had that, I think, 3 times now. It was about ago. But okay, not a big deal.
I first time came to Tashkent, and then I didn't know the.
Okay, first time I came to Tashkent for the first time is probably better, but I didn't know. Candidates using past simple, good stuff.
Streets and the bus directions and when they come and when they will drive.
So I loss of coherence there. That might be because I paused, but I want to listen to that again because I'm not quite sure what the candidate's talking about.
And then I didn't know the streets and the bus directions and when they come and when they will drive.
I didn't know the bus directions when they come and when they will drive. Now, why are we talking about the future? They will drive. Come present. Why are we using present time?
And I need to go.
Need to or needed to? I think he's saying needed to. I'll give him benefit of the doubt.
To zoo with my friends.
I needed to zoo or needed to go to the zoo? What did he say?
And when they come and when they will drive. And I need to go to zoo.
Needed to go to zoo. Cool.
With my friends. And It was easy to go there by using e-maps on our phones, and we just built a way to go there. It took about 30 minutes from the location where we were. So
Okay, so fighting over where we are, where we were, gets there.
It was a really cool experience. And
Again, it was a cool experience, but that's not enough. I have mentioned this many times on the channel that I don't like it when candidates just think like, oh, an adjective is going to do the job. It was a cool experience, or it was very interesting. I much prefer digging deeper. What was cool about this experience was, and then explaining what was cool, not just saying it was cool, but explaining why it was cool. That's that big difference between, the B students and the C students.
we, when I first time came to Tashkent, I really
So candidate now has to repeat his ideas. When I first time came to Tashkent, so he started telling the story about how he went to the zoo. It took him 30 minutes and he got there and it was cool. That's the end of the narrative. And now, when I first came to Tashkent, now we're either moving to a different story or we're repeating. So the candidate cannot go for 2 minutes telling the same story. And again, this is just a question of preparation. I would like to think that, I know for a fact that a good teacher working with a good student will not have any problems making a strategy for IELTS Speaking Part 2, learning how to take notes and how to use the notes and how to stretch out the information so that we have a clear beginning, middle, and end to our Speaking Part 2, where we don't need to repeat, we don't need to start freestyling. It's a very easy thing to do when you have a good teacher and a good student working together. So easy to nail this part 2 without repeating, without breaking down.
didn't know anything about here, and
So candidates mentioned this before. When he first came to Tashkent, he didn't know the directions of the buses. Candidate is now repeating that idea.
there was no one who could help me, and no relatives were here. And also, before
Candidate's not really talking about the map anymore, is he?
I was actually was
So this is what I would say is a critical breakdown now. It's a complete, and this happens sometimes. People do have critical breakdowns. Can the candidate bounce back?
I had before used the maps on my phone when
At least he's getting back to maps. That's good.
I went to other cities. So
but now he's talking about general times when he used a map. And there's that big difference between speaking about something in general in the present or in general in the past and talking about a specific time in the past. And I find that for B students, especially B1s, they always mix that up. When you say okay, tell me about a time when you went to the cinema. They often say, oh, I really like going to cinemas. Cinemas are my favorite things because, at the cinema you can da 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 da. When you want people to speak about a specific time, they speak in general. When you want students to speak about things in general, they speak specifically, right? Talk about, talk about movies. They say, well, one movie that I watched yesterday was da 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 da. So they really have that difficulty understanding what tasks require me to speak about something specifically and what tasks require me to speak about things in general. Now, I don't think this candidate really has that problem. He spoke about the specific time when he used a map. It's just that he couldn't stretch that over the 2 minutes. And when he ran out of ideas, then he just started speaking about, how he used maps in general. But yeah, it is drifting off topic.
It was really easy to me use it. And also in that apps, everything is clear, so you can find the location where you want to go.
Everything is clear. You can find. This task wants you to use past time constructions.
Easy, and there are no other destructive stuffs in there.
So now he's not talking about a time when he used the map. He's talking in general about the positive features of this map.
So
Thank you. All right, so you've been talking about this time when you used a map.
All right, so comments on part 2. Yeah, we did have a critical breakdown in there where the candidate kind of like completely stopped, but he did, make an attempt to keep going, which is good. He didn't give up. He did try to bounce back. But yeah, the candidate broke down after about a minute. I think maybe a minute 20. But, because he's relying on slow speech, you don't really get a lot of volume. You don't get a lot of details. We know that he needed to go to the zoo. It was about 30 minutes ago. He used the map to get there, and it was very cool. But there's a real lack of detail in the story. And then, the candidate starts freestyling. And so, when I first moved to Tashkent, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any relatives. I didn't know where anything was. And I used this map, and this map was cool because da 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 da. Okay, fine. But can't stay, right on topic for the whole 2 minutes. Grammar's okay, a little bit drifting into present time, but does use some past time constructions, okay. Basic grammar is reasonably well controlled, I will say that. Pronunciation, again, no different to part 1, and fluency, no different to part 1. Candidate relies on slow speech. Pronunciation is mostly staccato with some, flashes of intonation, some flashes of connected speech, but not sustained over long stretches. Anyway, let's keep going.
Let's talk about maps more generally now. Firstly, do you think paper maps
So I think the candidate shook his head again. Let's see.
Maps more generally now. Firstly, do you think maps...
Yeah, again, you get a little head shake. Negative body language won't help you.
Paper maps are still necessary in 2025?
Nowadays, I think nobody uses paper maps because
nobody uses, again, gets that third person S, nice control.
Everyone has a phone where
everyone has, cool.
They can just download an app.
Nice vocab, download an app.
Of an app where is everything is clear than the paper map.
Where everything is clearer than that comparative adjective.
And what
again, that answer is short, isn't it? I'm waiting for more of a development, but the answer is short.
The advantages of digital or online maps?
Oh, there are so many factors which is better than paper maps.
So you can see here the candidates, that's what I mean by flashes of connected speech. This answer, the speed of the speech, the pace and the connectivity of the speech is better, isn't it? Listen here again.
Or online maps.
Oh, there are so many factors that
chunking is good.
Which is better than paper maps. First stuff is you can just find.
But he can't sustain it for long periods. It's just flashes.
Any place you want to go, just take.
Any place you want to go. So that any place you want to go. That's good. It's like, can he now stretch that out and sustain it over longer speech? No. But do we get flashes of it? Yes.
Few seconds. And also they can make a road for you, how it would be, how long will it take to go there, and
okay, how long it will take instead of how long will it take, but okay.
What kind of transport you can use. You can just take a taxi or go on a bus.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, so all right, the candidate has described, the some advantages of maps, fine.
Do you think children should learn how to read maps at school?
I think they didn't need to because it's easy stuff.
They didn't need to, or they don't need to?
I think they didn't need to because it's...
Sounds to me like he's saying didn't need to, like past time. So I'm not sure why past time.
easy stuff. Just their parents can teach them how to use it. As I said, the digital maps and online maps are really easy to use, and there are no extra, how it's called, difficulties while using it.
Cool. Nice vocab difficulties finding the noun while using it. That's good stuff.
So, why do you think some schools still teach children how to read maps?
So I remember we had this at school, ordnance survey maps in our geography lesson. So our teacher showed us what ordnance survey maps were and, the different symbols and what they mean. And this was part of our education.
Uh, could you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, so in some schools, teachers still teach children how to read paper maps, with all of the symbols and things like this. Why do some schools still do this?
Not a very friendly question, is it? It's kind of difficult. I think I could answer the question, but I could certainly see why a B1, B2 candidate would have difficulties with it.
Maybe because that they want to teach children to know where the exact country or the exact region is, and also
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, for geography, where is India on the map, or where is, I don't know, Papua New Guinea?
how to
It's not really teaching them how to read maps, but candidate is on topic.
not. In some areas, you might just not have phone or the internet to use your phone or online maps, and you need to have paper map also to use. So they need to learn it.
Yeah, it's kind of not massively satisfactory in the answer of like why some schools decide to teach children how to read maps, but it's a difficult question.
Let's talk now about getting lost. In what situations might a person get lost?
People can lost in
Not people can lose, people can get lost.
different kind of situation. If they go to another country or another region where they haven't been before.
Lovely. Where they haven't been before. Love the use of present perfect here.
So it's not hard, or it's maybe in a forest where not everything is clear. It's just you will be surrounded with
Cool. You'll be surrounded. Nice passive infinitive.
trees and other plants. So it will be difficult to find the road to the city center or somewhere where people live.
Okay, so fluency isn't great, but the idea here, really good coherence. The answer, I think this answer is reasonably well developed. It's well explained.
And what is some good advice to keep in mind if you get lost?
Don't panic. Try to find somebody. Look at where the sun is, or the direction of the sun. Maybe, I don't know.
If you get lost, if you are going to take a trip to region or city you haven't been before, you need to take a compass and also map to.
I don't know if you really need to take a compass if you're going to a city that you've never been to before, but take a map, fine. But we're looking for advice, not what they can do before, what they can do ahead of time, but if they're in a situation where they are lost, what is good advice here?
Find if to be.
If you're in the forest, maybe find a river and try to follow the river or something like this. I'm not the best person to ask if you get lost.
To foresee the unexpected difficult challenges in there.
Mm-hmm. And finally, can you think of any advantages to getting lost in a city?
Getting lost in a city.
So we're looking for advantages now, right? And so the advantages of getting lost is that it might make you explore things. You might find things that you hadn't expected. Those are the main advantages. You might even You might get lost. You might have to start a conversation with someone. You might even make a new friend or something like this. So, difficult to find, but there are some advantages to being lost or getting lost. Can the candidate talk about them?
Is not how it's called. Isn't scary because it's
So he says getting lost in the city isn't scary, but okay, but what are the advantages of being lost or getting lost?
in the city you can ask people to the place you want to go. They will help you without a doubt. I have been in that.
Candace's trying to say without a doubt, but I hear without a dub. But I think he's trying to say without a doubt.
It's in that type of situation a year ago, as I said.
Okay, thank you. That is the end of the test.
Again, negative body language from the candidate at the end. But again, that's just a human thing. I understand it happens. All right, let's get into some marks. I don't think it's a particularly difficult one. I think I'm going to go to the rubric here just to show you. I think it's pretty clear, right? Let's have a look at 5. Usually able to keep going. So I'm here. Let's just change the color of that pen. So I'm here. Usually able to keep going, yes, but relies on repetition and self-correction, yes. And or slow speech, yes. Hesitations are often associated with mid-sentence searches for fairly basic lexemes and grammar, probably. So I don't need to read the rest of the stuff. I'm even if the candidate does have, even if the candidate doesn't overuse discourse markers, there is that limitation that the candidate has to rely on slow speech. More complex speech usually causes disfluency. Simpler language may be produced fluently. Yeah, it's a 5. Yeah. And I don't need to talk any more about that. I can just simply say it's a 5. Lexical resource, my instinct is to go with 6. Resource sufficient to discuss topics at length. This is the big question for me, at length, and that could be a problem. Vocabulary use may be inappropriate, yes, but meaning is clear, yes. Some of those things like tone was a little bit unclear, but generally it's clear. Generally able to paraphrase successfully, yeah. Candidate mentioned that place in Uzbekistan where he likes to go for a walk and explained, what that place was. It's a decent paraphrase. 5, sufficient to discuss familiar and unfamiliar, but limited flexibility, maybe. Attempts paraphrase, but not always with success. So, it is borderline 5, 6, and this thing at length, and that's the key thing. So an examiner certainly could award a 6 and certainly could award a 5 here. I'm going to go with 6 because I'm that type of examiner that's looking for the positives. There were clearly some problems where the candidate couldn't speak at length, but for some questions, the candidate was able to use enough vocab to speak at length. Certainly, an examiner could give 5 for this, but I'm going to go with 6. Okay, 6 for grammar. Produce a mix of short and complex sentence forms, yes, and a variety of structures with limited flexibility. I'd say, yeah, probably. Though errors frequently occur in complex structures, they really impede communication. And let's have a look for 7. A range of structures flexibly used. Error-free sentences are frequent. There was good control of grammar. Both simple and complex sentences are used effectively despite some errors. A few basic errors persist. I'm leaning more towards the 6. I don't think, there were some nice things like if you've never been there before, but I don't think just using, a bit of present perfect here and there is enough really to award the 7. So I'm closer to 6 for this. And then looking at pronunciation, well, for a band 7, you need all the positive features of band 6 and some of the positive features of 8. So first of all, if we want to consider a band 7, we have to say, yes, the candidate has all of these positive features in 6, uses a range of phonological features, but control is variable, yes. Chunking is generally appropriate, but rhythm may be affected by a lack of stress timing. That is true. Some effective use of intonation and stress, some effective use, yes. This is not sustained, yeah, absolutely. Individual words or phonemes may be mispronounced, like relatives instead of relatives, but this causes only occasional lack of clarity, I agree, like without a dub instead of without a doubt. That's a little lack of clarity, can generally be understood without too much effort. Yes. So we can say that the candidate has at least band 6 for pronunciation. Now, if I look at band 8, can I say that the candidate has some of these positive features? Wide range of phonological features to convey precise or subtle meaning? Nah. Sustain appropriate rhythm, flexible use of stress and intonation across long utterances? No, we are nowhere near that 8. So I don't think there are any positive features in that 8. So not enough for an 8, of course, not enough for a 7. For me, 6 describes it pretty clear. Just take a look at the 5. Frequent lapses in overall rhythm. I do think that there are frequent lapses in overall rhythm. Control of intonation is limited. Yeah. So, there is an argument that it could be a band 5 for pronunciation, because that would be all the positive features of band 4 and some but not all of the positive features of band 6. But again, can generally be understood without much effort. Yeah, I think 6 is a reasonable description of this candidate's pronunciation. And so for me, I won't write out all of the things here. I'm just going to say fluency and coherence, it's closer to a 5. Lexical resource, it's a 6. Grammatical range and accuracy, 6. Pronunciation, 6. Certainly for that vocab, because of the short answers, an examiner might give it 5. But overall, I think 5.5, the lower end of upper intermediate. Now, in my brain, 5.5 is like a high intermediate. I know on the IELTS scale, 5.5 is low B2, but I think 5.5, based on the Glynn scale, 5.5 feels intermediate-y, and I do think this candidate feels, like an intermediate student. He's, a solid B1, maybe a high B1, on the IELTS scale, a low B2, and that's okay. So some areas of improvement. You would benefit from some casual, low-pressure English speaking practice. It feels to me like you don't have a lot of practice with speaking English, and I don't think you are ready for this high pressure test environment. I think you need to build confidence by speaking to people, having some type of friendship with someone where you use English. That would be great. Try not to let, I know it's tough, try not to let your negative body language affect you. Try to stay positive. There are psychological things you can do to help you stay more positive. Being negative certainly isn't going to help you. You're okay. I think, like I say to so many people, make sure your answers directly respond to the questions. So many people go off topic in IELTS. There's no reason to do it. I do think you could benefit a lot from a strategy for part 2, because it's clear that, you don't, I don't know what your notes look like, but your notes are not helping you get through that 2 minutes, I don't think. But yeah, I think you need confidence building. I do think, in your brain, I think if you did a grammar test and a vocab test, I think you probably would get a strong B2. But in terms of the skill of speaking, not, knowledge of grammar, knowledge of vocab, which is great, but the skill of speaking, the confidence of speaking, of communicating, I think that is a weakness that you have. And I think, you just need to build confidence there, and some casual, informal, low pressure English speaking practice would help you a lot, I think. But those are my thoughts overall. Overall, let's just go back. Overall, 5.5. IELTS scale, low B2. Glynn scale, solid B1. Those are my thoughts. So let me know what you think. Am I too harsh? Am I too generous with my marking? Would you have given something different? And as always, if you'd like your own free practice speaking test with feedback, or if you'd like me to check your IELTS writing, information on how you can get this for free is on my Telegram channel, Expert Examiner, but it's kind of a lottery. There are lots of candidates and only one expert examiner. Lots of candidates, one Glyn, and so you have a 1% chance of winning each time, approximately. Of course, if you're really desperate and you have some money and you want to have a paid speaking test or a paid writing check, information on how you can get this is on my website, expertexaminer.com. A link to everything is in the description below. More videos coming soon, but for now, bye bye.